Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Tamara Munoz. Tamara is a fractional COO to some of the world's leading online businesses and founder of Behind the Scenes. She partners with growth-minded companies to build strong operations without losing the human side of leadership. Tamara has spent decades in corporate leadership with iconic brands like Disney and Starbucks, mastering high stakes operations in organizations with a 24-hour workday. But it was her real life experiences, navigating loss, crisis, and moments where people were treated as expendable, that shaped her human first approach. Today, her mission is clear: designing systems that protect both people and performance. So, welcome to the podcast, Tamara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for our conversation because you have learned a lot about burnout and about, companies and the people that help work in the companies and make them run and, not forgetting those people that work so hard. So I'm really, just excited for this conversation because I really feel like people need to hear a little bit more about burnout because sometimes we might not know we're on the verge of it. So before we start that conversation, though, can you first share a little bit more about you, your journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a pretty colorful background in operations. I started my journey early in life at around 19. I got pulled into leadership, and it's all I've known. High volume leadership, big teams, scalability. And it was such a fun experience, especially being that young. I had the energy, I had the time, I didn't have kids. So I was really able to dive into that world. And very quickly, I say very quickly, it took eight-ish years before I really hit the wall when it comes to burnout. In that middle management role, you feel the pressure from both ends. So you feel the
Mhm.
pressure from your team and representing your team, doing what's best for them, doing what's right by them. And also the pressure from the stakeholders, right? You can have the most wonderful manager above you, most wonderful leaders, but then there is always the business pressure,
Mhm.
efficiency, bottom line.
Mhm.
And there is this dance that you have to do as a manager where you manage.
Yeah.
You have to make it work. And I very quickly hit the wall, and it was a series of unfortunate events that led me there. We had, in one of the companies I worked for, we had a death on the team, very tragic car accident, young man.
Mhm.
And I was also very young at the time. I was 22. And for me, that was very jarring because they don't teach you how to navigate
Yeah.
loss
Yeah.
anywhere in school, training. They
Right.
don't really teach you how to navigate that. So that was a very difficult introduction to the realities of life. And since then, after learning the lessons that I had to learn there of leading human first, and the operation sometimes does have to come second to what's actually happening. We have had team members pass away. I worked in a very diverse environment where we had very young kids, 16, and we had very senior team members. So it was just a natural thing in life. But after that first event, I really took it upon myself to do the work when it comes to workplace professionalism, but also empathy and that human first leadership.
Mhm.
And it really lends itself well, once I moved into the second big company that I worked for in a different way. So I worked in at-risk areas. So we had a very high population of homeless, of at-risk youth. So it was navigating that very interesting
Mhm.
environment of keeping the humanity there, meeting people where they were at, handling safety with the team, the training, all that very nuanced
Mhm.
and nuanced environment and how to like navigate that. And also, I would watch my peers who were fantastic, but I would watch them really struggle with their work life.
Mhm.
So a lot of them had kids and they were putting their kids to bed via FaceTime, and because they were working, it's
Mhm.
24-hour operations, you can't really stop. And
Mhm.
if something happens, you are salaried, you get pulled into it.
Right.
And I would watch marriages deteriorate and their health take a hit. And it got to the point in my mid 20s where I had to look in the mirror and it's just like, do I want this to be my future?
Yeah.
I met my now husband when I was 19. So he had been with me through this entire journey. And now we're looking into that next phase of life of marriage and kids. And it's like, is this really what I want?
Hmm.
And the answer, I mean, the fact that I was even having that question, the answer was obviously no.
Right.
And then in 2018, I lost my grandmother. I grew up in a multi-generational home. So she had a very big part in raising me. And I had never lived apart from her. And she passed away at the very old age of like 84. She was lived a very long life. We were very blessed to have her. And also, I was only given a couple of days of bereavement per company policy. My manager was so gracious and he was wonderful through that entire process. However, for 3 or 4 days to basically travel,
Hmm.
because at that point I was living away from home, travel back, grieve with my family, and then come back. It just wasn't enough time to really process everything.
Hmm.
And it was in that moment that I knew I had to change. Something had to change, something had to give. This was no longer for me.
Hmm.
And November, she died in July. And then November of that year, I fully invested in my business. I was like, I'm going to start a business. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to do something. And within 3 months, I had replaced my salary. And by May of the following year, I quit. I bought my house, I got married, and I quit within the same weekend. Like
Oh my
I,
gosh.
I did it all at the same time. Well, when you're a business owner and you're looking to buy a house, you need to have
Yeah.
2 years of tax returns
Oh, yes.
before you can buy a house. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to wait 2 years. And thank God, because this was in 2019, and then
Yeah.
2020 hit, and like
Yeah.
that was a whole thing. Um, so this is in 2019, and I was like, no, I'm gonna keep my job. I'm gonna work both simultaneously until I have my keys. And it just so happened that we closed the day before I got married. So the second I like signed the paperwork, I had my keys, we were in the house. I'm like, okay, great. Hey, by the way, I'm done. This is my last day. And I haven't looked back since. It has been such a wonderful experience to just kind of go all in on business. And also, I have had a lot of experiences with burnout myself, even inside of my business, because all of the habits that lead to burnout,
Hmm.
they are habits. It's not just something that happens isolated in a corporate setting, or
Yeah.
it is very much how we are brought up with
Hmm.
school and activities and
Hmm.
after activities, socializing, and weekends are full of soccer, volleyball,
Right.
whatever it is that
Yeah.
you're doing as a kid. And then you move into the real world where you're working 60 hours a week and you're
Yeah.
young. So after the long work week, you're going out to party and do your thing and socialize, and you never stop. And then there comes a point where your body has been running ragged for so long
Hmm.
that you hit that wall. And even though I thought I was saving myself from burnout, I went from just like one to the other, one type of burnout to another within like a year.
Well, I mean, that is so true. And I think a lot of us can relate with that, especially those that, I mean, I have kids, I still have two at home, and it never stops. I mean, just like this last weekend, we're like, oh my gosh, we can't figure out what day it is. We actually had a weekend where we had both days, both Saturday and Sunday at home with
Amazing.
no activities. And it's just like, I really feel like it should be later in the week, for some reason. And so I'm really curious. First, how do you define burnout? Because you were also mentioned it was like, oh, it was a different kind of burnout. So for people listening, is it's like, what does that mean?
It can manifest in many different ways depending on who you are, where you're at in your life. Male, female, it manifests very differently. So for example, when I was in my corporate setting, burnout actually manifested in overproduction. So I was working even more. So when babies get overtired
Mhm.
and then they don't sleep, but then they're like mad about not sleeping, but they won't go to sleep. So
Yeah.
that I was a baby. So that was me. I was
That's a good way to explain it though, because when kids get overtired, they have like this, they just get wild and they just
yeah.
go go faster.
They go faster. They don't want to go to sleep. They fight it, even though like that is the cure to
Hmm.
what they're going through. So I was definitely going through like my baby phase burnout there, where I was just doing more and more. In fact, and just push harder, and that manifested itself in a lot of anxiety. a lot of depression. I was very combative. So my personal relationships were struggling at that time because I wasn't sleeping well.
Mhm.
I was anxious all of the time. I had so much going on. So then anytime anyone told me anything, it was immediately, instead of just like having a normal conversation, I would like snap.
Yeah.
And it's not really like me to just jump at that. So that was kind of the moment where I was like, something's got to give here. Like I am not in alignment. I am not rested. I'm
Mhm.
really struggling.
Mhm.
And then on the other side of burnout, I was older. I had just had my daughter in 2020, October of 2020. I was within my first year of business and we did not have help because, with COVID and everything that happened,
Yeah.
we were very isolated. I have an elderly father. So we were just not seeing people. So we were very alone. And in the business, I had just hired team earlier that year, earlier in my pregnancy, and they were supporting with client work, which is great. But I didn't have the structure, the infrastructure
Mhm.
for me to be supported.
Mhm.
And my
Yeah.
husband was still working full time. Now he works for our businesses, and it's been wonderful since we made that shift. But he was still working full time, so he was at the mercy of his full time job, which at that point was providing us stability, healthcare, all of that stuff. We
Mhm.
had a newborn. I had my businesses. I had clients that they needed us to
Yeah.
show up. They were paying for us to show up, and my burnout actually manifested in illness. So my hair started falling out. I actually started getting really, really sick. I gained a lot of weight really quickly. Um, and again, the anxiety, the depression, like those emotional factors were still there, but
Mhm.
in my body,
Mhm.
I actually shut down where like I just couldn't work or I couldn't do more.
Mhm.
And also like I had literally my hair falling out. And I like joke about that now. Like, if you want to do this and not have your hair fall out, because I have been there,
Yeah.
where your body has a visceral reaction to burnout.
Mhm.
And I see it manifest in so many different ways. So many women end up with adrenal issues and they end up hospitalized for that, hormonal imbalances.
Mhm.
A lot of women, when they come to us, there is that always that layer of like low hum anxiety and depression
Mhm.
constantly on the back end.
Mhm.
They describe it as having a million tabs open and there's music playing, but they don't know what tab the music's playing on. That's yeah, that's a lot of
So
what we
much going on that we
Mhm.
can't even focus and we can't even like determine where it's all coming from.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then our bodies are just totally stressed out to the max, which for a lot of us can like you said, it can manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mood definitely, emotions definitely are affected, but physically it can come out in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And how you react to it too. So
Mm,
before I was combative, now I was just avoidant. I would just
yeah.
avoid. I very much had I wouldn't answer messages, I wouldn't answer phone calls. The only person I really interacted with was my infant who needed me.
Yeah.
And that was about it. So it can also manifest very differently based on like where you're at in life and like what is triggering
Yeah.
the burnout.
Yeah. Because that is true. I mean, you think of avoidant behavior, I think of a lot of us um distraction.
Mhm.
I kind of avoiding and distraction and a
Yeah,
distraction kind of, is similar in some ways, but if we're like really in tune with ourselves and you're like, wow, like this isn't me,
exactly.
then we need to look at what we're doing, correct? Just like
Mhm.
how we're responding to things, how the things that we're doing might be affecting our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviors, how we respond to others. That's just
Absolutely.
it's all there in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree 100%. And it's one of those, how you mentioned avoiding, something that would come up for me a lot was like procrastinating is what I called it. So I would just like clean and organize everything over and over and over again in avoidance of the things that actually needed to be addressed.
Oh yeah.
And my house never looked better, but I also was not doing what I needed to be doing, and it just compounded the stress because then it's like you feel the guilt and the added anxiety of like I need to respond to this person. It's been 2 weeks and I haven't messaged them
Yeah.
back, and then yeah, it snowballs.
Yeah. And then it gets to be like, oh my gosh, I'm just totally overwhelmed here.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah.
it moves into another spiral. It could, and it just and how do people get out of that? So how do you help people understand, one, it could be burnout, and then if they decide it is burnout, what can they do?
A lot of it is asking for help. So I specialize in supporting business owners in getting out of their own way and stop being the bottleneck, which usually leads to the burnout and the
Yep.
spiral. A lot of it ends up having to be asking for help. And the way that we do that is asking for help is not enough. It's my job to then come in and provide the structure so that they are feeling safe enough, like their nervous system feels safe enough to receive the help.
Hmm.
Because what ends up happening is that, okay, you feel like you're burned out as a business owner, and then you end up hiring an assistant, and then actually ends up becoming more work for you because you do
Mhm.
not have the infrastructure in your business to have an assistant. The assistant will now be asking you, where's this? Where's that? How would you respond to this? I don't have the password to that. And then it just becomes your job goes from doing the work to then having to micromanage and then redo the work because they don't have the assistant doesn't have the tools
Mhm. Mhm.
to
Yeah.
succeed.
Yeah.
So it is a vicious cycle. So what we do is that we come in and we provide safety
Mhm.
first. So like we need to provide that psychological like nervous system safety where and we do that through the systems and the structure. So like we download your brain and we create standard operating procedures and we it's all done for you because we can't ask you to do more.
Yeah.
You're already at your wits end, so it's all done for you. But we hold your hand through that process. We create communication rhythms where you're always in the know because also another thing that can
Yep.
trigger anxiety is not knowing what's going on and things are happening. But if you're not getting updates or visibility to
Mhm.
what's happening, then you switch from I need to do this to is this even getting done? And
Mhm.
then it's another stressor
Right.
on
Right.
you. So we want to add those communication rhythms into things, that visibility, that project management. And usually within 90 days, we have extracted the business owner from the trenches of the business where they are now feeling safe. They have delegated enough off their plate where they are working normal work days, not, 14-hour work days, 6 days
Right.
a week, as
Right.
we tend to do, especially in the early days of business.
Mhm.
And then we put in that operational, like that operator, the operational expert in their business because those tests still need to get done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't need to get done by the business owner. They don't need to get done by the
Mhm.
CEO. The CEO's job is to deliver on what their promises are to their clients. If
Mhm.
that is, their if they're delivering, we have practitioners, dietitians, coaches, consultants, if they're doing that kind of work,
Mhm.
and growing the business through visioning, networking, podcasting,
Mhm.
content creation, and basically just holding the vision for the company. They won't have time for any of that
Yeah.
if they are stuck
Mhm.
in their inbox, if they are stuck answering everything.
Yeah.
Um, being the IT department, the social media department, the finance department, they just don't have the time for that. So we come in and we just take over that chief operator role.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so then they can be like the executive officer. And we have found that usually within like 6 months, because usually after like the first 90 days, they feel like they can take a break and then
Mhm.
they start that burnout recovery on their own, whatever that journey looks like for them. And we have incredible partners that we work with that we always refer clients to if they do want to, have deeper healing when it
Mhm.
comes to burnout. um, and then usually by like 6 months they are now growing the business and they're excited and they're reignited by their business and that burdensome feeling, that resentment that they had towards their business, because that's usually when you start the first red flags of burnout. It's the you get the Sunday scaries again. You resent having meetings on your calendar. You get anxious when you have like a Slack ping or when you see an email come through. Like it's very the signs are there. And
Mhm.
because it happens so gradually, we don't really notice it until we're just a ball of anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could see, for those listeners that may be like, oh, well, I'm not really in that business role or, whatever, this all applies to everyday life. I mean, just think about it. I mean, we have times when we're overwhelmed in doing stuff at home, relating to our family and to our spouses or, in even volunteer groups. I mean, all of this applies because we get the same, the burnout symptoms are very similar. It just
Very.
depends on, where you're at and your experiences and, your workplace or your home place. It's all right there. And I was just like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, we need structure and systems
Mhm.
because sometimes we like control, like we like to know what we're doing, but then we also don't want to do it all, but
Mhm.
we have a hard time asking for help
Yeah,
because people can't read our minds, like,
exactly.
and how we like things to be and how things are done. And so those million questions you get from somebody, whether you ask your kid go do something or your spouse or whatever, you're going to get a zillion questions. And then
Yeah.
it's just like, I can't handle this. And you get overwhelmed and you start the whole process back over again. And you say, forget it. I'm just going to do it myself.
Exactly. And as women, we take on so much of that invisible labor and that mental load. It
Mhm.
is just our default, unfortunately, to just take it on ourselves. Because where I find now at this point, my business runs itself and I have the structure. Now it's my personal life that causes me stress. I have 3 kids under 5, so I'm very much like in a trench with them.
Yeah.
And it's building those asking for help where it's just like maybe the help is like Instacart. And it's like, I can't get to the grocery store today between like work and this and
Yeah.
that. And I have to
Yeah.
take the my daughter to dance and it's like a whole thing. Okay, well then we'll just Instacart and we'll pay for the convenience.
Mhm.
However, it's either that or we're going to be Uber eating later because like we don't have food in the house because I haven't been able to do X, Y, and Z. And
Right.
sometimes it looks like having to like ask, for help, whether it's from your community, from a friend, hiring someone to come support, where it's just like, can you help me fill
Yeah.
in the blank, whatever
Yeah.
this looks like. Can you watch the kids while I do laundry? Can you do laundry while I watch the kids? Can you help
Right.
me meal prep for the week?
Yeah.
And getting to that place because even here with me, like my husband is a very present father. He's a very um equal partner to me in our household. And we still struggle. Like we are two people and we still struggle
Right.
where we do have to constantly be asking for extra support because we do find ourselves having burnout with
Yeah.
okay, we've been either ping ponging, working, handling the baby, doing this, going outside and getting driving the kids around to their activities, and it just becomes so much. So just really tapping, knowing when you can tap into your community, what your resources are, if you're close to family and they're open and happy to support in that role.
Hmm.
You need time for yourself. You need a date night. You need time to reconnect.
Right.
Because also you can work all day, come home, then you do like I call it the Bermuda Triangle, like, with your kids, like if you fall into that between like 5 and 8, dinner, bath time,
Yep.
bedtime. And by the time you're done, especially with younger kids, it's like 10 p.m. because they all keep waking up and taking turns waking up. You're exhausted and you don't have time for yourself.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
you end up doom scrolling because it psychologically you still need that time for yourself. So you end up on your phone,
Hmm.
scrolling, taking in all everything that's going on. Then you get even more anxious and you're not connecting with yourself. You're not connecting with your partner. And the next thing you know, it's 1 a.m. and you have to be up in 4 hours. And
And I
it's
think
a
so
huge
many
cycle.
people can relate, and we're just like, let's get off of this,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So we've talked about burnout, we've talked about how to ask for help and create systems and things. How do we get into the being human? You talked about being, the human first kind
Mhm.
of thing. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So in everything that we do, professionally, we want to put people first and like see them as whole people.
Mhm.
So in my experience, when you nurture your team members, when you nurture your business and you understand that these people are whole humans,
Mhm.
performance increases, efficiency increases, satisfaction increases across the board. People are more likely to stay on and work for you. People work for people. They don't necessarily work for the business. So, for example,
Mhm.
I had a wonderful leader where it's like I work for her. I don't work for the big business. I
Yeah.
work for her wherever she goes. I go whatever she says. I do.
Yeah.
And there was that loyalty, but she saw me as a whole person.
Mhm.
And by that, I meant not only the simple things that businesses should be offering, time off, paid time off, sick leave,
Mhm.
all the general things that businesses should be offering their employees, but also that level of empathy of if I come in and I am not performing to my usual standard,
Mhm.
hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Not immediately. Your performance isn't up to standard. Here are the KPIs you're not hitting. Blah, and going like the corporate speak
Mhm.
efficiency,
Mhm.
like you're hurting the bottom line by
Yeah.
being stressed out. Like it's more of like that human connection that baseline empathy that we're asking for.
Yes, yes.
um, because as a leader, you know your team, you know what's normal for them, you know what's not normal for them. And a lot of the times it is personal circumstance or it's health situations that are causing the disruption in their performance. And it's like, how am I able to come in and support you? We are a team.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're giving 70%, I can come in and give the rest of the 30.
Yeah.
Or if you need less, then we can exchange energy here.
Mm-hmm.
um, Especially when it comes to like small businesses, it's everyone wears a lot of different hats.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, we are stretched pretty thin, and if one person isn't performing to standard because of whatever is happening, the leader needs to know, because we do have limited resources. But I would rather know from day one so that I can support you and give you what you need. And if we need to backfill you, or if I need to just pull a couple of extra longer days for you to do whatever you need to do, I'm happy to do that. In my experience, you see higher levels of satisfaction on both ends, performance, and also loyalty,
Yeah.
longevity. It is expensive to lose good team members, not only from, losing talent, but also if you're service based, usually losing a team member means losing a couple of clients on their roster. There's the whole expense of hiring, training, onboarding. So fiscally, it is way more beneficial to take care of your people, and then your people will take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really understanding that we are human.
Mhm.
Like, and bringing out that element. They're not your employees or the people that you're working with. They're not just a number. They have feelings, they have a life outside of work, and sometimes we can't separate them, especially if it's physically, emotionally we're, kind of there, physically we look like we're there, but mentally we're not there. And being supportive of that and understanding, and getting that support system in place. And maybe it is that structure. Maybe they're on their way to burnout, but
Mhm.
we are humans first.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where, I mean, you have to have the acumen and the intelligence to understand, like, people might take advantage of this. However, you can't lead with the assumption that people are going to take advantage of this.
Mhm.
And also, the world has shifted so much since 2020, where so many more mothers are actually leaving the traditional 9 to 5, because there is no room for mothers in this space. For the most part, we're primary caretakers. Your
Mhm.
kid gets sick, you have to go out and get them from school, because they, or school or daycare or whatever.
Yeah.
That is your primary role. And if businesses aren't being flexible, childcare is so obscenely expensive at the moment that it is more cost effective for moms or the primary caretaker, not
Yeah.
just moms, to stay home
Mhm.
and or work part-time. And corporate businesses, to traditional 9 to 5, they're losing a lot of talent. I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I read this back in December, but it is becoming like an epidemic where women are leaving within like the first year of having a baby to either start their own business, work part-time, work remotely. They're looking for jobs that are significantly more flexible. And it's not a forever thing, but it is through those, I want to say, like first like 12 years,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
your kid gets sick and they need you. It's not like they
Mhm.
can really take care of themselves. um and the businesses that do have that infrastructure in place and that flexible time and remote work and everything, that have seen retention and talent on that front.
Yeah.
But the numbers are speaking pretty clearly.
Right, right. I mean, because life situations. I know. Yeah, daycare is super expensive. I'm happy I'm beyond that stage right now. But I've got kids that are starting to have kids, and that is a huge concern.
It is.
And it's like, oh, how are we going to do it? Because I'm basically working to
Mhm.
pay childcare and I'm not seeing my kid.
Yeah.
So I
So
hear that balance, and then to, become that role of that mother and father as well. So I don't want to leave those guys out either, because it's in a very, very important role. And but businesses also have to be flexible.
Absolutely. And with men, it's you see that a lot of like they never get asked who's taking care of your kids. They never get asked any of the questions that we get asked because it is assumed that they are, that they have like a spouse or whoever taking care of their kids. And it's like if only they were also asked. I feel like there is a disservice when men aren't brought into the conversation because back in 2020, when I was going through my burnout, my husband did have to request time if my daughter was sick, if I was sick, and be that extra layer of support. Um, to be present, to be there. And luckily, he at the time he worked for a very flexible company, so it worked out. But they are a very important part of the equation. And sometimes there are single dads out there that are making it work and are doing all the things and are wearing all the hats. And it really boils down to company policy and what they're willing to do and how much they're willing to invest in their people.
Mhm, mhm.
And when we're speaking about bigger businesses, it's not about like the resources because they have endless resources. They make billions in profit. It's having a conversation about what the implications would be if they actually took care of their workforce
Mhm.
instead of paying out their stakeholders. They can pay out their stakeholders like a few less $1 million and they would reap the benefits and they would actually see an increase in profit across the board within 3 to 5 years time, if not
Yeah,
less.
yeah. And that's monumental, investment.
Mhm. Yeah, investing in your people is huge.
And yes, yes. And it'll pay out in the end. Let's just say that
Always.
for
Always.
always. So, do you have a few, like, I know we've talked about this, but just can you go back and just like how just naming out just specifically a few things that for listeners that okay, what to do if they are experiencing burnout, and then also how to create the human first. Just wrap it up real, in a summary.
So with burnout, the first thing I would do is get very honest with yourself as to what is leading to the burnout. So what I like to do is I like to sit down, I like open up a blank Google Doc and
Mhm.
I brain dump everything. What I'm doing in my business, what I'm doing at home, all the open tabs, I'm putting it down there. And as I write it down, I like mentally, like I visualize it. I'm like, okay, I'm closing this tab, I'm closing this, I'm closing that.
Mhm.
Then I go through my entire list and
Mhm.
it's like, what are things that are just noise, that they're just open tabs in my mind because they are, but they
Mhm.
don't do anything for my family. They're not things that need to get done. They don't do anything for my business. And I close
Mhm.
those out. I delete that. And what are things that I can delegate? What are, so that sometimes looks like grocery shopping, ordering Uber Eats, whatever that looks like, hiring someone to come help clean my house, whatever,
Mhm.
within the confines of my resources. And I then delegate those out. And then I figure out like my priorities based on what's left for me to do.
Mhm.
And if it does not fall within like my must do priorities to keep the lights on in my house, food on my table, and my kids healthy, those then fall off. So then I decide every day, like these are my top priorities. As long as they get done, it is a successful day. So then I can avoid the guilt that comes with not doing all of the things. It's like these are my must do's. The
Mhm.
frogs, what is it, like swallow the frog or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, these are my have to do's. And then once they're done, everything else is a cherry on top. But there is no longer that like psychological pressure
Mhm.
that's we can't put our finger on what it is, but it's because we can't see it. And most of the time, it's stuff that does not matter, that does not make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the next thing would be creating a system for your life. And a lot of this is through the lens of like motherhood, but like anyone can really implement this, especially when your kids are a little older. I have a 7 month old at home, so we don't have much structure with him. But with my older kids, it's having the routines
Mhm.
of in the morning, they get up, um, put their clothes on, get ready for the day, brush their teeth, have breakfast,
Mhm.
and then we get started for the day. And at night, it's the same thing. We have dinner, it's
Mhm.
bath time, and then it's winding down, reading their book, going to bed, and doing what we need to do there. Those routines
Mhm.
and having like a place for everything. Like we always put our shoes here. You always put your bag there.
Mhm.
When you have young kids, they're so easily basically programmed to do what you need them to
Right.
do as long as you have the system in place. Because now it's like, well, mommy, why didn't we do this? And for a while I was taking my daughter to get coffee. She would get a little hot chocolate, I would get a coffee, and then we'd go to the park. And we were doing that for a while before I had my third baby. And that was her routine. Every Friday we did that. And then when we stopped, and we're picking it back up now that we have a little bit more uh,
Mhm.
time, but it's like, well, mommy, that's what we do every Friday. It's our routine. So just putting routines in, it is a bit of a lift up front to just get
Mhm.
that in place,
Yeah.
but it makes it so much easier. Like my daughter now knows like her clothes go in the hamper.
Yep.
And then once, the clothes are clean and like she puts them back, she folds them and she puts them back in her drawers and like she has that down. So I'm like, amazing. Now when my son's only 2, but it's like eventually I can get him there
Yeah.
too. And then that just relieves so much extra stress from me. Just putting these things in place where I'm in a very unique phase of life, but it is just a phase. If I am able to set them up with the habits today,
Mhm.
I will reap the benefits years from
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because we all desire structure. I mean, just think about it. It doesn't just come to us. These routines that we've had don't just like randomly show up. It's
Right.
just something that we have determined that works for us.
Yes.
And to create less chaos in life in general, let's start our kids young, but sometimes we have to reprogram ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We have to stop and think and go, okay, what's going on in my life? Like you said, you like take an inventory of all the tabs. So what is going on in personal, volunteer stuff, work, family, whatever it is, whatever all your tabs are open, figure out what's the priority, what you can eliminate, what you can delegate, and create structure. So that is
Absolutely.
at any age.
At any age. And sometimes it's also reprogramming where we are so addicted to the chaos
Yes.
that when there is silence and when things are running smoothly, then we it triggers anxiety because your body is so used to being in that state of chaos.
Yeah.
So it's feeling safety and like speaking to yourself and like how you do with kids, like affirmations, like I can do hard things and I am brave.
Yeah.
It's like I can relax because I am safe and things are getting done. And just reprogramming and talking to
Mhm.
yourself into feeling safe within the structure that you have created. Because if not, we are addicted to the feelings that we have when there
Yeah.
is we're in fight or flight for so long that that's all our body knows. We will default back to that. So it is talking to yourself and journaling when you can, and even just like listening to like vibey music, like that does not get your heart rate up. It just relaxes you and just being okay in that. Because if not, it is a cycle and you'll have like 3 really nice peaceful months and then you will create your own problems so
That is
that you can
totally
start
true.
feeling the chaos again.
That is totally true. And I'm like, I'm glad you brought that up because we do sometimes can't we can't sit in silence. We can't sit in peace. We're just uncomfortable with that because, like you said, we're just not used to it.
Mhm.
We're just used to running in chaos and running, both burning both ends of the candle, right? And just go, 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 go. That when we have a moment, we're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel right. And we create our own chaos again, the stuff that we don't want. I was like, so it's okay. It's okay to be peaceful at times, right? It's
It
okay.
is okay. It is safe. You are
Yeah.
safe. If things aren't on fire, it is totally fine. I mean, a lot of us default to scrolling and like doom scrolling, and then we end up just having like secondhand anxiety from things that are happening. So then it's just like you're just creating
Yeah.
um, a way for your body to get the fix that it's looking for. So
Mhm.
it's just finding other things. And when it comes to like burnout, it's finding ways to feel peaceful and to have a other way to get dopamine. So whether that is finding a hobby or going back to hobbies that you used to like, walking, moving your body, like emotion is energy in motion. So like how do you get this stagnant energy out of your body?
Yeah.
um it helps a lot to just like go on walks or I mean, I don't have that luxury all the time, but sometimes it's just like cooking and putting on my headphones and just like moving my body around in the kitchen while I'm getting things done,
Yeah.
uh, to just move that energy so
Mhm.
then that way your body can just like find a release for it that is not, let me ignore this for a few days and then I can be really stressed out when I come out of my kitchen's a mess. and it's going to feel so bad and I can't wait. Like that's what your body's saying.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, Tamara, this has been an awesome conversation. Where can people find out more about you, your business, anything like that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I am, and I'm sure you'll have this in the notes
Yep.
somewhere, but
Yep.
Tamara Munoz Wilden, that's how where you can find me on Instagram. And then my business is behindthescreens.biz. That is our website. That's also our Instagram handle, really easy to
Yep.
find us. Um, and yeah, so I'm just so grateful that we got to chat today. This was so, so fun.
Yes, thank you. I'll put those links in the show notes. And as we wrap up today, is there anything left that you had that you want to leave the listeners with that maybe you haven't said, or just anything?
Honestly, a lot of when it comes to moving yourself from burnout into a place where you are more grounded, a lot of it is just being your own best friend and treating yourself as your best friend. So, what I do that has really helped me is that I just pretend to be someone else. And it's like, if I was someone else, what would I say to them in the
Mhm.
situation? If I was someone I loved, if I was my sister, what would I be telling her?
Yeah.
And the situation, and the language shifts a lot from being very self-deprecating
Mhm.
and guilt-ridden to very loving, and it's like you're doing your best and give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And what if we just looked at things differently and put in some safety bumpers here, so then that way like you don't feel like this anymore. And when you start to see yourself through the lens of other people and how people are seeing you, it makes that conversation a lot easier because we hold ourselves to a very high standard. I mean, women in general, but like I'm sure
Mhm.
all the high performing women that you have in your space, like we just hold ourselves to an impossibly high standard, and when we don't meet those impossibly high
Right.
standards, there's
Right.
a litany of feelings that we feel. So we need to give ourselves a lot of grace
Mhm.
and treat ourselves as if, we are our own best friend, and be okay with asking for help and understanding that in asking for help, it's not weakness.
Mhm.
We need to be able to pour, like, what is it? You can't pour from an empty cup. So
Yeah.
like you need to be overflowing. When
Yeah.
you're overflowing, it flows to everyone else. Um, and making asking for help safe. So understanding if I'm asking someone to do this, let me either be okay with how they're doing things, because at the end of the day, things are doing, they're getting
Yeah.
done, even if it's
Yeah.
not how I would do it. It doesn't mean it's wrong. Or letting them know, hey, this is how I like my towels folded. If you could just please do it this way, because if not, I'm just going to end up redoing it.
Mhm.
And then giving them an instruction of like what it looks like when it's done. So then that way, they can honor that their help is actually helpful, and
Mhm.
you feel really good about it. So you either have to be okay with people doing their own thing when they're
Yep.
helping you, or very clear as to what your expectation is. And that goes a long, long way.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope the listeners, I know they will get a lot out of this because there was a lot of good gems in here. I'm going to go back and listen to it again because there's so many good gems. But remember, I love your last point, to treat yourself like you would your best friend. Like give yourself the advice and talk to yourself like you would your best friend. So, which you are, should be your own best friend. So, thank you so much for joining me today, Tamara. It has been such a pleasure and I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.